Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Jared Polly's Fragrance Reviews. Tonight we're going to be examining a fragrance from the house of Tom Ford. This release came out in 2013. It is called Tobacco Oud. This is an Eau de Parfum EDP formulation. So this fragrance is a boozy, sweet, tobacco incense laced fragrance that has an enormous cult following. It is opulent, it is deep, it is brooding, it is unmistakably Tom Ford in every manner. It is done in the Tom Ford style that many of his cult following have grown to love. This is definitely something that is love or hate. I love this fragrance, and I think there are two fragrances previous to this. Number one is in the early 2000s, Tom Ford released YSL M7, which he was the creative director at Yves Saint Laurent at the time. And I get a lot of the same DNA from that fragrance that is in this one. And also the 1990 release of Chanel Egoist. That fragrance has great similarities to this one. The main difference is in the late dry down, where this fragrance becomes much smoother than Chanel Egoist. So I'm going to take this out of the box. It's got the conventional Tom Ford beautiful bottle. Goes straight. So initially, you get a sweet whiskey, like a sweeter tobacco, and you get what I call the sweet stink. And there's a smell that I absolutely love that is prevalent in Chanel Egoist. The thing about Chanel Egoist in comparison to this fragrance, that is an amazing fragrance because that fragrance was truly ahead of its time. This fragrance, I think, is maybe possibly a more oud-based, more tobacco-based. This fragrance has a sweetness that is dark but not candy-like, which I find very appealing. The dry down on this is kind of a smoky incense. You get the cinnamon and the sweet tobacco. Again, like most of Tom Ford's fragrances, they're fairly linear, and the base notes is pretty much what you would get in the initial spray. So there isn't a lot of change or development in this fragrance. Later on, you really get this Middle Eastern vibe to it, the M7 vibe. And like I said, it doesn't change too much, but I do find in this scent, it does have that animalic quality, which I love. So this is a top-notch fragrance. There's no doubt about it. As advertised, the top notes are whiskey. The mid notes are various spicy notes, cinnamon and coriander. The base notes are tobacco, oud, incense, sandalwood, cedar, patchouli, benzoin, and vanilla. Just two notes I want to briefly talk about. The first one is benzoin, which is part of the resins balsams family. This is a warm note, which is like vanilla. It's very sweet, and it's obtained from the bark of a tree called styrax. The second note I want to quickly mention is coriander, which of course is a spice, also known as Chinese parsley. This note is sweet, spicy, woody, and peppery. And throughout this fragrance, there are sweet notes, but it's a natural sweetness. It is not an artificial sugary sweetness. And that's the natural sweetness I can do with some of that. But when it starts to become sugary, artificial, it's too much for me. So, like I said, this fragrance, I think the rough draft for Tom Ford was when he did M7. And like I said, there is resemblances to Chanel Egoist, which is an amazing fragrance. As for Tobacco Oud, last thoughts, this is a luxury smelling fragrance, very opulent. It has great performance, great longevity and projection, is well blended, and it is very, very dense. But at the same time, this scent is very polarizing. Not everyone's going to like it. This is a daring fragrance that succeeds in its boldness. Unfortunately, where I am, it's no longer available. It's very hard to get. This is a very pricey fragrance as well. And you have to be able to make the decision if you're willing to fork out the money to purchase something like this. And if this is your type of fragrance if you're able to sample it, which is something you, for this price, I think you have to do, unless you're just an avid Tom Ford fanatic. You have to sample this. And one last thought about it is, this is not like an overly dominant oud fragrance. And as I said, it's very well blended and with an oud vibe. So it is extremely appealing. It is extremely wearable, but you have to be careful on the trigger when you apply, because the first several hours it has excellent projection and scent bubble. So overall, I would consider this 2 thumbs up. This is an excellent fragrance for Tom Ford. The main issue with all of Tom Ford's products, or anything by Creed or Niche, you have to be able to judge if you're willing to spend that amount of money to purchase the fragrance. And this is where many other people turn to alternatives. But I do think if you have the money and you love Tom Ford, I definitely think this is worth picking up, even though it's getting harder to find and probably going up in price. I do think it's worth it. So if you like this video, hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. Any comments, questions, or experiences you have with this great fragrance, leave them down below and I'll always get back to you. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.